So great to be with you once again for Moments That Matter, your Monday debrief of everything happening here in the Hungry Jacks NBL. And while there's just so much going on, to be honest, that we've got all these bullet points, we've got all these things to talk about, we'll do our very, very best to get through all of them. And a reminder, with everything that's going on, we've got 2 games tonight that we'll get to a little bit later on as well. I'm Jack Heverin, Derek Rucker. Great to see you on Moments That Matter for the first time this year. And we saw the Perth Wildcats come out yesterday and absolutely jump the Jack Jumpers.
Yeah, that was a remarkable performance by the Wildcats. I clearly did not anticipate that type of pouncing from them, but it was led by Bryce Cotton. And Jack, this is the advantage. When you have one player who is so great and able to impact games so suddenly, it gives you a distinct advantage in these games that are perceived to be really close going into them. And Bryce Cotton was the difference. Everybody jumped on board, and it was never a contest.
They wouldn't have been the only team this season that have had this problem, but it just felt to us watching yesterday that there was no matchup that the Jack Jumpers could throw at Bryce Cotton. There was nothing that was going to bother him.
Well, Andrew Gaze and I spoke prior to the game and during the broadcast about who could potentially be the one player for Tasmania that, if given the assignment during a stretch of time, could effectively silence Bryce Cotton. And we weren't able to pinpoint anyone as potentially being able to do that. Maybe Anthony Drimmick, but he was found out pretty early in that game. Little resistance, and you could see that he was feeling good and physically was popping and full of vibrance. It was going to be his playground, and 32 points in like 3 quarters, Jack. It was just a dominant performance again from Cotton, who now has both hands all over that Andrew Gaze trophy.
I was just about to say that the MVP conversation's over, isn't it? Bryce Cotton's the MVP for the season, surely.
It is, and I spoke briefly to him after the game, and I just, my conversation was more from a point of marveling at what he's been able to do, not only through his career, but Jack, I think this might be his best season. The only thing that may prevent this from being his best season individually is if the Wildcats don't win at all. And with him playing at this level, I can't categorically count that out as a realistic chance.
Well, they've won 7 of their last 9 now, so they're one of the form teams of the competition all of a sudden, Perth, and they've got a stretch of games at home at the back end of the season, which makes them dangerous as well. The thing that was really noticeable to us, Derek, yesterday, seeing them up close, was the way they explored in the first 8 seconds of the shot clock. It seemed like a clear game plan yesterday to attack Tasmania early, scramble their defence and look for an early shot. Is that sustainable? Can they do that for the remainder of the season?
I think so. And if they're capable of getting big leads, then it's not your talent and wearing Bryce down, because you can just sit him like he did yesterday. I'm sure he feels really good flying up to Brisbane today about the physical burden that his body was able to avoid because they had such a big lead. And John really knows this league really well. He's getting better, I believe, as a coach. And he probably was aware that there was a potential letdown just emotionally from the Tasmania Jack Jumpers. And he took advantage of it. He took it right at them, took the crowd out of the game. And I thought that was realistic, one of the Wildcats' best victories in a couple of years.
Absolutely agree with that. I thought they were polished at both ends of the floor. The other talking point out of this, though, is the Summer Shootout aspect. So Mark Arena, the Wildcats coach, goes on X before the game, says that if the Perth Wildcats are successful, that all of the money will go to the players. They're not going to share 50-50 with the organisation. Every single dollar will go to every player on the roster. And then they have 13 points in the last quarter and they sit all of their stars, including Bryce Cotton. They finished with enough points to lead the Summer Shootout right now, but have they blown the money?
Enough, Jack. And that was probably the only blemish on their performance as a group yesterday. I would have liked to have seen the starting group play 3, 4, maybe 5 minutes of the start of that fourth quarter, just to see if you can get some rhythm and some momentum. I thought if they could have gotten up to 118 to 120, they were well on track for, that they could have put the summer shootout away. But like everything else in the NBL, it's unpredictable now. Who knows who's going to win this? And they do get a chance now, though. I think they may have one more chance. No, that was their only
That's
chance,
it.
right?
Yeah.
That was it. So I think now, and I think I said on the broadcast yesterday, I think Cairns are a chance this weekend here in Brisbane.
Watch this space. That's coming up on Friday night, that game. You and I are both involved in that one. The Jack Jumpers, no doubt, there was an emotional letdown after Friday night's win over Adelaide. I don't think you could question that. Certainly not an excuse for the way that they played yesterday. They were outclassed. The Sean McDonald injury is the one, though, Derek. I think the numbers back it up that when Shawnee Mac plays, Tasmania were winning. He was out of the team yesterday. How big of a loss do you think this is going to be for them?
He's massive, and they've been able to cover the fact that Sean McDonald was back in the lineup. With both of them out, they really got tough sledding ahead. Now, the thing about Sean McDonald is he gives you really good offensive production. He's an outstanding point guard, and he's a level head out there. And I think he's a guy that they missed yesterday that just could have provided the right type of leadership, emotion, and performance to lift that team when it was evident that they were struggling. Majuk Deng had a bad game, which he can be, he's got a grace period of a couple of years as far as I'm concerned. He's going to have a bad game every now and then. So I'm not blaming Majuk at all. It was really a team thing where they were down and they ran into a hot team. And sometimes this convergence occurs and just kind of got to move on to the next and learn as much as you can from that loss.
Saturday night, I was in regional Victoria, Traralgon to be precise, to see South East Melbourne take on the Brisbane Bullets. To the Phoenix first, we talk so much about the moments that mattered on this show. I can't help but wonder, Derek, what the moment of Derek Walton Jr. injuring his hamstring, what that moment means for the Phoenix for the remainder of the season.
Okay, Jack, so this is a tricky one, but I think that Derek Walton coming back into the kind of gave them the impetus from which now they can continue to go even without him in the lineup. Now, he is a brilliant player, but I think South East Melbourne now can still advance deep into the playoffs. It's going to be much more difficult than it would have been with Derek Walton Jr. in the lineup. But I think they have enough, and enough guys have gained confidence. Nathan Sobey is playing really good basketball now. Glover and Foxwell complete that backcourt. I think between the three of them, they can get enough done. Now, the margin for error has definitely decreased without Derek Walton Jr. We're not sure how long he's out for, but, if they can handle their business and just finish in the top four, I think they have to finish in the top four somehow. If they finish 5 or 6, then it becomes even more difficult for them to make that nice postseason run.
So they've had a small sample of this. Walton Jr. was injured in the middle part of the season. When that happened, they went to Angus Glover. He became the starting point guard. They kept Sobey at the 2, Foxwell off the bench. Is that the direction that you'd go?
I think I might roll the dice a little bit and put Foxwell into the starting lineup and bring or go to work against second stringers where, he's definitely overqualified for that position. But Matt Hurt's playing really good basketball. Joe Wieskamp has found his way into the league. Malik Lewis is serviceable. Jordy Hunter's playing good basketball. And most importantly, Josh King has adapted to the league. He's coaching a winning style and a style that is perfect for the NBL. So maybe they get Derek Walton Jr. back in a month and he's able to make an appearance in the playoffs. Maybe they get him back in 3 weeks, but we still have to wait and see what that timing looks like. But I'm confident in their prospects going forward.
They won 7 of their last 9. Now the South East Melbourne Phoenix, they've got games coming up against Cairns and New Zealand. So that record is only going to look better. You'd think that they should win both of those games. Their opponents, the Brisbane Bullets, they're on the slide at the moment. They had some really, really good momentum. The Bateman injury has hurt them, no doubt. They're still trying to acclimatise Josh Adams. But to me, Derek, as hard as Josh Bannon tried on Saturday night before he got injured, the whole of Tyrell Harrison is really, really obvious.
It is. And with Rocco having been, you can see that he's not as sharp as we've seen him be, and that's still a few weeks away, but they need him to be sharp now. So this week of training for Rocco in particular is vital. But the Bullets have been snake bit, Jack. Make no mistake about it. These injuries have taken a toll on the team. I think their effort has been pretty good, but they're going to have to play even harder now. They're going to have to find a way to defend. I don't know if they're going to be capable of outscoring teams with the lineup the way it is. We're not sure of the timeline for Tyrell Harrison's return, but they desperately need him because he was playing good basketball, probably tinkering on the edge of all NBL, one of the lower teams, but he's still in that category of being one of the top 15 to 20 players in the league. And Josh Bannon, we don't know what the injury concern, how long that's going to keep him out, but a little bit of tough times here in Brisbane for the Bullets.
They've got issues with Mitch Norton, a hand injury as well. Deng Adele with a quad sustained during the game. And Emmett Nah, who I saw having a lot of conversations with the medical staff pre-game about an issue in the stomach and the ribs area. He lasted about 30 seconds before he couldn't go. So it's funny, Derek. We've got the ladder predictor that is about to go live, I think, on nbl.com.au. Had you have played with that a fortnight ago, I think most people probably would have had Brisbane pinching sixth spot and finding a play-in position. I'm not so sure now. I'm not sure what you think, but my opinion's changed on Brisbane in the last 12 days.
Well, our colleague Pete Hooley messaged me early this morning and said if I could help him out and send through my ladder predictions. So I was on it early this morning, and I think I had Brisbane finishing 8th, which I feel like they're far better than an 8th place team, but circumstances and misfortune have really played a huge role in where I see them finishing. However, with the run Casey Prather's been on and the fact that they do have some home games up their sleeve, if they steal 2 this week, they've got Perth, then they've got Cairns. If they get these 2, Jack, they're right back in the equation. And then they'll obviously need some help with, maybe Tasmania dropping some games or Southeast Melbourne, kind of falling from its good graces at the moment.
They're at that stage now, Brisbane, aren't they, where there's no margin for error. They just got to win.
They do, and they need Keandre Cook to step up and be really although it's probably unfair on Josh Adams, he's got to come in and produce. And those 3 imports need to be able to get, 55 to 60 points a game at a minimum to make them a real possibility of winning the bulk of these final games.
Hard work, I think, would be the best way to describe Sydney's win over Cairns yesterday. It wasn't pretty. They trailed for a good portion of the game, and we'll get to the Taipans very shortly. But it's an interesting one, Derek, for a team that are positioned where Sydney are positioned right now. But this is how we're talking about them. We're saying that as long as they're getting their wins, it almost doesn't matter what it looks like. They've just got to keep winning. I don't know. I'm not sure what to make of this team.
They're so patchy. They're skittish. They defend brilliantly at times. They go on runs offensively where you say, where has this been? Then they're horrible offensively. They can't score for 3 or 4 minutes. It's so schizophrenic the way they play basketball in NBL 25. You just can't rule them out because of the talent, the coaching. You always feel like there's a chance. And they probably did deserve to beat Brisbane maybe on 2 occasions this year. If they would have dropped those 3 games that I just mentioned, they're outside the 6th in all likelihood. And yet, I still consider them a chance to make a run and get in the championship series. They're strong enough defensively.
I wonder whether that revolves around Cam Oliver. Because Jalen Adams, we know what we're going to get. Xavier Cooks, we absolutely know what we're going to get as well. His numbers are fantastic across the season. But Cam Oliver had 15 and 17 yesterday, had a big impact on the game. I wonder, Derek, whether he is the difference between Sydney potentially winning this thing and not.
They can't win the championship, Jack, with Cam Oliver playing 12 minutes a game, playing 8 in the first half and 4 in the second. Like, that has to be moved to the side now. He's here. You got to ride with him now and see what happens. He's the best rebounder. Even though yesterday he had terrific numbers, it still only barely got them over the line. So I think they just got to go with it, go with their horses. He did a couple of rounds ago. He was okay yesterday, but still a little bit patchy. Everybody has to hit their level now, and they need 4 guys on a night to do so. The perimeter shooting has to get better. If they can shoot the ball a bit more effectively from the 3, I think that will do wonders for their offense.
When I spoke about the players that you know what you're going to get from them week in, week out, I mentioned Jalen Adams, I mentioned Xavier Cooks. Deliberately left one name out because I think now, Derek, he is playing at a level where Sydney do know what they're going to get from him each and every game, and that's Kawhi. Excellent again yesterday, had 27 points. You could argue that he may have in fact been the difference between winning or losing. Is he the runaway candidate for Sixth Man of the Year?
I believe he's Sixth Man of the Year. There's no doubt about it. And where would the Sydney Kings have been without his performances throughout the course of the season? And I think that's going to be the point of distinction between Kawhi and all other candidates for the Sixth Man of the Year. And he's been doing it consistently, but it's just not his scoring. It's the energy that he brings. It's infectious. He is one of the favorites at Kudos Bank Arena. And I like the confidence that he brings. And when you have a lead vocal guy, that's where Kawhi can fill that gap. And his service to the Sydney Kings over his stint there, Jack, has been invaluable.
Credit to the Taipans as well. This is a tough situation that they're going through right now. It's not nice to be on the end of a losing situation like they are, but I thought they tried really hard yesterday.
They did, and they have some home games coming up. In fact, I think the game here against Brisbane is going to be a very exciting game Friday night. And, you know, the Sunshine Stoush always presents a lot of drama and intrigue, and I'm certain this one will be very, very much the same.
So before we get to what's coming up tonight with the 2 games, let's start with thumbs up, thumbs down. Now, Derek, I normally let you go first, obviously, because you are the man that everyone wants to hear from, but I've got to get this off my chest, and I don't think I'm the only one, but thumbs down to the Adelaide 36ers. That game on Friday should have been a banked result. You tick the box, you move on, you take on Illawarra tonight, and you potentially win that, and they're one step closer to making postseason. The mismanagement of the last 3 minutes of that game was diabolical.
It was brutal, and I saw that Lat Mayen took a bit of a hit from Damon Lowry, and I get it, but it was kind of the whole team that let themselves down. But the thing I find most disappointing is we saw last week how crucial execution and smarts and basketball savvy is down the stretch. We saw think that the Sixers would have been on high alert and making sure they had everything solid down the stretch, especially given that they have no margin for error. And they blew that one. There's no other way to look at it. The turnover that allows Deng to knock down the 3, that was inexcusable. And it's something that could cost them a playing spot. But, you know, they've got a chance. However, if they win tonight, it would kind of make up for that, Jack, although not totally, but kind of.
They got to win tonight. Simple as that because of what happened on Friday. Who's your thumbs down for this week?
My thumbs down goes to the New Zealand Breakers. I just don't like the way they look emotionally. It's one thing to lose, and I think we just referenced the Cairns Taipans. They're playing hard. They're in games. But New Zealand just lose it emotionally, and then the bottom absolutely falls out. And, again, we've talked about the transaction to get Taco in. I feel bad for Taco Fall. It's not his fault, but unfortunately, when you're the centerpiece like that and you're this big draw card and you have this circus side, everybody wants to come see you. I just feel like it just makes me feel uneasy, Jack. So they get my thumbs down, and hopefully they can find a way to feature in the thumbs up at some point down the course of the season.
Well, I would think based on what's gone on in recent times, that won't be happening anytime soon for the New Zealand Breakers. Thumbs up, where you landing?
I got to go with Bryce Cotton. This guy, Jack, there's been so many discussions since Bryce really started to show his superstardom in the NBL. It probably started a few years ago with our late partner, Corey Homicide Williams, who effectively went out there and said Bryce is the greatest import to ever play in the league. And I resisted that. And I must say now, I'm starting to agree with Corey. And I think Bryce is right there behind Leroy Loggins. And I mean, Jack, he's coming hard down the stretch with about 200 meters in the stretch. And he just continues to perform brilliant acts where, I mean, right now, I don't even know how to describe 7 threes in the first half. And when I have someone as great as Andrew Gaze next to me shaking his head in disbelief, it knows that my awe and marvel of him is fully rationalized. So Bryce gets my thumbs up, and I think there may be more in terms of his legacy standing. If not at the end of this season, then certainly in the next season or two.
I'm going to give it a little thumbs up, and I agree with everything that you've said when it comes to Bryce Cotton. In any other season, had it have not been for Bryce Cotton, we would have been talking about the season that Trey Kell has had as potentially being an MVP of this league. There's no doubt that he's the recruit of the year. It's an unbelievably savvy piece of recruiting by the Illawarra Hawks, and Justin Tatum saw something that he liked last season and went and got it. Trey Kell's leadership and the way that he's the man with this Illawarra team, it's taking them potentially to a grand final series.
He's just such a complete player. And I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, how he scores, he distributes, he leads, he defends, he rebounds the basketball. He's got good size. He gives the Illawarra Hawks a physical. And I have him in the top 4 for the MVP race. And if we want to quickly go over people that I got in the discussion, Bryce is going to win it. But Trey Kell, Kendrick Davis, Jalen Adams, Matt Hurt, Casey Prather, PJC suspension killed him. But these are the guys who I think in any other season where Bryce hasn't gone absolutely ballistic, these guys are realistic chances of putting their hand up and saying that I am a strong candidate for this year's MVP.
We're going to see Trey Kell in action tonight against the Adelaide 36ers. What happens in this game, Derek? We've touched on Adelaide already. They're much like Brisbane that we spoke about earlier. They're in must-win situations now. That they really can't afford to be losing many more.
Well, I think Adelaide have the beef up front to challenge the Hawks, and the Hawks do such a good job with their interior scoring. But they got to control Tyler Harvey, and I'm not sure Adelaide have the pieces to defend both of those guards. And I think Kell is going to draw the top defensive assignment, which is going to leave Harvey free to do what he wants.
And then the New Zealand Breakers host the Melbourne United. That's the first game on our Monday night doubleheader. Is this a soft kill for Melbourne United? Am I being disrespectful when I ask you that question?
I don't think you are, but if I'm Melbourne United, I'm looking at this game as a chance to build on the first 2.5 quarters that we showed in had a big lead. Okay, let's do it for 4 quarters. Let's do to New Zealand what Perth did to Tasmania yesterday. Let's go over there, build our confidence, come back home and feel good, and let's make our final push for a top 2 spot.
Well, that's what's coming up tonight. New Zealand and Melbourne first, and then Illawarra and Adelaide. Going to be a very, very interesting game at that second one for sure. Derek, enjoy your week. Always nice to talk to you, and we will reload and do it again next Monday.
All right, Jack, love your work, and I will see you Thursday for NBL Now.
You most certainly will. Make sure you're tuning in tonight to those games as well. A game a night right now here in the Hungry Jacks NBL. The hits just keep coming. Thanks for watching Moments That Matter.